For anybody who's watching the recording, I got on a minute early, so turn up my volume. So we'll be starting in just about 2 minutes. Hi, everybody jumping on. Sorry, I just wanted to turn my burner on. I'm gonna wait 1 more minute to see if more people jump on, and then we'll go ahead and get started. If anyone's cooking with me or planning to cook with me tonight, I already have my pan on with my 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and I just have that warming up over medium heat so that we can get started right away. So if you're cooking along with me, you can go ahead and do that right away. I will say I already chopped all of my veggie ingredients ahead of time just to save a little bit of time for our live event. Hi, everybody. I'm so sad. This is our last week. It's like always so exciting in the beginning, and then seeing everybody's creations, and it's just like builds momentum, and then all of a sudden it's over, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's over. All right, checking my time. Sorry, use my finger. All right, well, I've got 4:31, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So hi, everybody, and welcome back to my kitchen. For the last time in our session. I'm super sad about it. And I actually tested this recipe last Friday night, and I liked it so much. I was like, I have to share this recipe. This is like the grand finale, the fancy Friday night dinner, right? But it is so easy and so fast. It's amazing. So for people who already heard me, I already have my 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil heating in my cast iron kind of short Dutch oven over here. I already chopped my veggies. So in here I've got 1 onion kind of chopped up. I have 3 cloves of garlic that are thinly sliced. And then I am going to use fresh thyme for this one. If you watched my videos before, thyme and me do not get along. I hate pulling all these little leaves off. Sometimes you can like pull straight and they come right off, but I'm not a thyme picker, so I'm going to just throw the whole stems in. So we're going to come over to my stove. Excuse me having to get really close to my camera because we have to walk together. All right, so I'm over here. Oil is heated up. So I'm just going to throw in my onions and my garlic and my thyme. And we just want them to soften. If anybody's cooking at home and you have questions, just throw them on there as I'm going. We're going to have a little bit of a break period while this goes into the oven. So I will have a chance a little bit later on to answer any general questions or even any questions about this recipe. So like I said, I just tested this recipe last Friday for the first time. We didn't do really any seafood recipes this time, so I was kind of looking for something in the seafood department. And this one just looks so easy and so good. So if you are a New York Times cooking person and you get on there and you look at the original recipe, I did change it. And that's why I test recipes before I introduce them to you. So in the original recipe, they have you cooking the shrimp ahead and then taking them out of the pan and then making the sauce and then putting the cooked shrimp back in and then putting in the oven. And I was like, oh my gosh, those shrimp are going to be like little rubber bands. I'm like, they're going to be so tough. I felt like that was way too much cooking on those poor little shrimp. So I skipped that whole step, and by skipping that whole step, I saved us 2 tablespoons of olive oil. We just didn't need them. So it's always nice when I can kind of review them in advance. And that made this recipe too. It cut about 10 minutes easy off the cooking time, which is great because this comes together super fast. I was also talking to somebody today about this recipe, and they were asking me, well, could I substitute some kind of fish for the shrimp? And I'm like, absolutely. If you want to use some kind of a filleted fish, just cut it into about I don't know, 1-2 inch chunks, like the size of a shrimp. I have the 21 to 30 count size shrimp, and it'll cook just fine in 15 minutes in the oven. So if you would like to substitute the shrimp out for some other kind of fish, absolutely go for it. I think tuna would be really good in this. I think halibut would work well, or swordfish would work really well, because they kind of hold together and you can cut them up into chunks. Snapper you could probably cut into chunks too. Cod you might be able to cut. That pretty well holds its shape. I am going to add a little bit of pepper to this. And the garlic for this, I just sliced. I didn't even chop it up. It kind of melts away in the recipe, and I didn't even think it needed to be like diced up, which was really great. Alright. I'm peppering because I like pepper. So we are going to add olives later on, so I don't want you to go crazy salting this, because olives are very salty. Feta cheeses can be a bit salty. So don't go crazy adding lots of salt, because then it's going to be over salted because of the olives, and they do add a really nice saltiness to it. So I'm really not going to add a whole lot of salt to this. Alright, so my garlic and onions are getting all nice and kind of soft and sweat down. This does not take long at all. So another substitution I made in this recipe, the original recipe called for 2/3 cup of ouzo. Ew. I don't know if anybody's ever tried ouzo. It tastes like licorice, and I was like, ooh. And how many of us keep ouzo around? I know I don't. So I did substitute white wine. If you want to eliminate the alcohol in this completely, you can deglaze your pan with just some stock, or even just some water if you want to, and that's totally fine too. You don't have to use it, but I substituted just some white wine I had in my refrigerator. We will cook the alcohol off of it and kind of reduce it down, so I'm not too worried about that. But I am going to go ahead and add that in now. I'm going to turn my heat up just a little bit. So we're going to let this wine just sort of reduce to half. And it doesn't take too long because my pan's nice and hot. I do also, if anybody at home is cooking with me, is anybody cooking? Oh yeah, scallops would work. If you have nice, good size ones, that would be perfect. Scallops would be great. I love scallops. They're amazing. If anybody's cooking with me, I do have my oven on 400 degrees right now, so we can throw this right into the oven as soon as we have the sauce all kind of put together. Another little change that I made, my husband always laughs at me because I'm like, I made a new recipe, but I totally changed it. He's like, of course you did. They called for crushed tomatoes, and I prefer fire roasted crushed tomatoes. I use the Muir Glen fire roasted crushed tomatoes. Potato, you can use whatever kind that you like. If you like regular crushed tomatoes, or if you like the ones with the basil added to them, whatever you like. I tend to like the fire roasted, and I thought that they would work really well in this. So that was my other little substitution. I did go ahead and buy a big 14-ounce or 28-ounce can, and then I just used half of it, and then I put the other half in my freezer, and then I had the other half ready to go when I wanted to make this again. And this recipe was so good, I'm not sad about having to have it again. But I really felt like it was like a fancy Friday night dinner. And you're going to eat this and you're going to be like, wow, this is better than anything I could get going out to eat. You're just going to impress everybody in your house. It's just going to be amazing. Alright. It's kind of like that chicken dish that I shared. That's one of our other fancy Friday night dinners. And it is great for like a chilly fall or winter night. It's just got so much flavor in it. I saw somebody did say they couldn't find harissa, which is fine. You can substitute any other kind of chili paste. Excuse me for a second. Oh. Cooking onions always makes me want to sneeze. And I put all that pepper in there. So if you can't find harissa, you can substitute other kinds of chili pastes. There's lots of Asian style chili pastes out there that are really easy to find. I'm trying to remember now where I bought my harissa. I think I bought it at Whole Foods. And actually the other day I was at Gateway Market and they had a huge selection of gnocchi. I thought that was really random, but they had a lot of different kinds of gnocchi. I was like, oh wow, this is like the treasure trove of gnocchi is at at Gateway Market. Okay, so I do buy at World Market too. They have gnocchi as well. So my wine has reduced now to almost half. I think I'm going to give it a minute more. I'm going to go grab the rest of my ingredients while that's reducing. Alright, one other substitution I made, because I can, half a cup of veggie stock instead of water. I'm always looking to add more flavor. Let's just bump up the flavor. So I always have veggie stock in my freezer or my fridge, so I substitute veggie stock. You could use chicken stock if you have that available as well. That would be totally fine. But I just felt like it was going to have so much more flavor doing the stock instead of the water. Particularly if you skip the wine, because that too is going to add some flavor. If you skip that, then I would recommend using some stock because that's going to add that extra little bit of flavor for you. Alright, my wine has reduced to half. So now I'm going to go ahead and add, this is 14 ounces of fire roasted crushed tomatoes. I think it's kind of neat in this recipe too that it kind of combines something fresh with something that's, you know, canned and sort of easy to find. And I was sort of thinking, you know, if you make this in the wintertime and you didn't have fresh cherry tomatoes, you could always substitute canned diced tomatoes and carry this into the winter time. I might even add a little bit of tomato paste then, because that would kind of sweeten it up, just like cherry tomatoes do, because they really add a really nice sweetness to it. So if you want to add a little bit more richness and sweetness, I would do canned diced tomatoes and then add a little bit of tomato paste. All right, get rid of that. All right, so this is sadly the end of my cherry tomatoes in my garden. It's just really sad. So this is kind of a combination of cherry tomatoes, and I have some like little red grape tomatoes. I cut the bigger ones in half. If there's teeny tiny ones, you can leave them whole. You don't even have to cut them in half. Give that a stir. All right, to that we're going to add about a half a cup of liquid. This is where I opted for veggie stock. We're going to turn our heat up just a little bit so this comes to a nice simmer. So as the tomatoes kind of cook down a little bit, it's going to sort of thicken this up, and we want to get this to where it's just a little bit thickened. It is going to thicken more when it's in the oven, and you can see it is a thicker sauce. The other nice thing about adding the fresh tomatoes is that when they start to pop, they kind of thicken up the sauce. So we're going to just let the tomatoes all play together and let the sauce kind of come to a simmer. I am at this point just going to add a little bit of salt because I do use low sodium tomatoes, and I did not add salt to the other step, and I do not put much salt in my stock. So I did add a little bit of salt, and I'm going to add a little bit more pepper. So serving options for this, I did mine how they did it on some just like toasty bread with some garlic and olive oil, and it was delicious. You could do this over top of some whole grain rice or whole grain or any other kind of whole grain. Quinoa would be great if you want to do it that way. You don't have to top it on anything if you don't want to. You can just eat it as it is. You could put it over a little bit of pasta. Like, I really feel like it's really versatile, that you can do a lot with it. I kind of like the Friday night treat on some toasty bread or some toasty whole grain naan. It'd be good on top of some garlic naan. All right, I'll be right back. I'm gonna let that simmer for another minute and I'll bring back the rest. Get to top it with a couple more things before we throw it in the oven. Okay. So it does call for, like I said, it calls for about a pound of shrimp. So last week when I made this, I had a whole pound of shrimp that I bought from the Iowa Food Co-op, and it had, you know, it wasn't peeled or deveined. It still had the heads on and everything. And for a quick Friday night dinner, I was like, this was a lot more work, Greta. So I did take the easy route this week, and I bought already deveined and peeled shrimp. So these shrimp I got at Target. These are the 21 to 25 count, which is, I feel like, is a really nice, perfect size for this. But if you cut your fish, if you want to do fish, and cut it into about the size of one of these guys, I think that would be great. I only buy wild caught shrimp because I only buy shrimp from America, fish in American U.S. waters, because that's, I want to keep my fish purchase as local as possible, and the Gulf for us for shrimp is about as local as we can get because we live in Iowa. So I do buy wild caught, and the wild caught, this is a pound, frozen from Target, was $10.99, which is a lot cheaper than a lot of other places that you're going to buy wild caught shrimp. So that was my splurge. Let me get a pair of scissors. But still a lot less expensive than buying wild caught a lot of other places. And I've had theirs before, and I felt like they were good quality. All right, it's starting to thicken a little bit. This comes together really fast. This would be nice too if you want to do it with a nice green salad on the side. Turn him down a bit because he's screaming. It already smells so good. Oh my gosh, can't even tell you. I'm gonna just look through quick and see if anybody had any questions. Is anybody cooking? Just like wave if you're cooking. Sometimes some people would join in and cook on Friday nights with me, and that was always a lot of fun. Does anybody else have like a splurge weekend dinner that they do? This is kind of mine. I was tempted last time I made this, and I was just telling somebody about this week. I like anchovies, I like the little fishies, like sprats and anchovies and stuff like that. This would be a great recipe to add something like that too, if you wanted to add even more fishiness to it. That would be delicious to throw in here. I would throw them in right before you throw the tomatoes in and kind of let them melt through the onions and the garlic. My tomatoes are starting to pop. And you know they're starting to pop when you just stick your spoon into them and it just kind of falls apart. That's about right where we want it to be. And you can see the sauce is just starting to thicken. It's literally this step, I mean, it takes like 5 minutes. It's amazing. All right, they're starting to pop. If you run your back of your spoon on them. Some of mine were tiny, so I just left them whole. And as they heat up, they'll just pop, they'll burst, which is just what we wanted. You want to cook this in a pan that you can put directly in the oven, because we are going to put this directly from the stovetop into the oven, which is why a nice cast iron or a Dutch oven is a really great option, because then you can go right from stovetop to oven and you don't have to try to transfer it. It's also less dishes, which is always my favorite thing. I'm not a fan of dishes. All right. It is thickening up beautifully. Perfect. Tomatoes are all just about popped. I don't know if everybody can kind of see it. Yay. Oh good, yes, rewatch it and make it. So good. turning him down because he's screaming at me a little bit. Okay. Perfect. So now all we're gonna do is we're just gonna nestle our shrimp down into the sauce. So I'm taking my shrimp out like this that I have thawed. I don't want all that liquid. I'm gonna have to wash my hands because I'm touching them. We're nestling these guys down into the sauce. Just like that. All right, I'm gonna wash my hands here in my bag. I'll be right back. All right, my hands are clean now, so I can touch my spoon. So I'm just nestling these guys in to make sure they're down in the sauce. They're all covered up. Perfect. I'm gonna turn my heat off now. I'm gonna go ahead and add, this is about a half a cup of pitted Kalamata olives. I'm not against the pitted kind, but for this purpose, I would do I would get pitted. I said, no, I'm not opposed to the unpitted kind, but for this, I would get the pitted. All right, this is about a half a cup of feta cheese. You could use other kind of cheese if you're opposed to this. You could use a little Parmesan instead. You could use some goat cheese instead. All right. And that's it. All right, I'm gonna throw this in the oven. It's gonna go in for 15 minutes. Setting a timer, because I'm notorious for forgetting about things, so I don't trust my memory. Okay, we're coming back over to our cutting board. Wasn't that crazy easy? Yes, scallops or shrimp. Either one. Or fish. Cubed up. Whatever. Scallops would be great. I didn't even think of that. That's a fantastic idea. Alright, so I have on my cutting board here, I'm just going to chop up my dill. This is our very last step, is to top it with some fresh herbs. If you have parsley and you prefer to use parsley, you can totally do that too. I liked the flavor that the dill provided, so I'm going dill. If anybody who knows the secret to growing dill, please tell me, because I have tried growing dill so many times and it just does not work out for me. I have tried it in the ground, I have tried it in pots, and I laughed because last year I looked behind my garage in like the ditch of grass behind my garage, and they're still beautifully growing that I did not plant there and just growing on its own and looked better than any dill I've ever grown before. This year it just grew into a stalk. It was terrible. I was like, great. I have heard growing it from seeds is better, so maybe next year I need to try it from seed instead of transplant, and I saved my seeds from my plant that I grew this year, so I'm going to try to grow it from the seeds of the plant that produced lots of seeds, didn't produce lots of dill. Alright, I'm just chopping my dill. This is going to go on top when we're done. Perfect. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to get this space open so that when we get it out of the oven, I can show you what it looks like. Put it right here. Okay. So, temp for the oven, 400 degrees for the oven temp. It cooks pretty hot in there at 400. And it's kind of nice. It's a perfect temperature too. You can go ahead and, if you're going to do some toasted breads or some toasted naan or something like that, and just drizzle a little olive oil on it, put it on a sheet tray, you can throw it in and toast your bread at the same time that you're making your shrimp or your fish, and they'll both be done at the same time, which is great. So good question. So while it's cooking, I just wanted to kind of wrap up a few things from our Meals That Matter session. I want to thank everybody for their participation. I really appreciate all your hard work and all of your sharing. I love watching all your triumphs and answering all your questions. I don't go away. I'm still here. So I do keep the Facebook page going. I still answer questions. I still respond to things. I try when I find things to continue sharing and sharing recipes. I will be starting now to plan for our next session, which will be in May. So if you are interested in that, keep an eye on the Facebook page, because Gina's really good about posting on our Facebook page when registration opens for the next session. So keep an eye on that. Go ahead and register again. Like I said, we have never turned anybody away for the bins. We've given bins to everybody every time and never said, no, we're not going to pay for your bins. So as long as we're within a reasonable number of registrants, we're able to take care of your bins. If anybody is continuing with Prudent Produce, fantastic. You'll continue. You can continue. You can get on their website and opt to continue with them and pay for bins. They have lots of different options, lots of different bin sizes, weekly, every other week. So you can look on there for that. If you are not continuing and you have a solid tub, like the plastic tubs that are reusable, I would ask that you please put those out on your porch, whatever your normal delivery day is this coming week, so that Prudent Produce can come and pick those up. If you have disposable boxes, you can just dispose of them. But if you have a reusable bin, like the green or the blue plastic tubs, please leave them out for them to pick up. What else can I say? I think those are kind of the big ones. If anybody has any questions, I would love to answer anybody's questions now while we're cooking away. We've got 10 minutes left. I can't believe dinner's gonna be ready in 10 minutes. About anything else, you can always continue to email me too, or call me if you have questions about anything, or if you need some inspiration. I actually made a new soup recipe last weekend that I had not made before that was very good. That it kind of reminded me a little bit of the dilly bean soup that I made last time, and I almost think I like it better. It had turmeric in it. It didn't have cabbage in the original recipe, but I did add it. It was excellent. It was very good. So I might be sharing that one soon. But if you need ideas, please let me know. I'm always in this kitchen. I'm always trying to come up with something new, something interesting. Always trying to find new ingredients to use in a new way. So if you're like, I just need a new recipe, Greta, give me something new, I'll work on it. Oh, it's naan, N-A-A-N. It's a bread. It's like a Middle Eastern, it's like a flat bread. And you can buy it in the grocery store already made. I mean, of course, you can make your own naan, but you can buy it already made. It's at any and every grocery store. My Fairway store has it. I buy mine at Target. I buy it at Whole Foods. It's available everywhere. It comes in different flavors. There's whole wheat. There's also garlic naan, which I really like that one. They also make naan, which is awesome. They make these like little individual ones, and I like to keep those kind of on hand too if I want to make like a little individual pizza, or I just want to heat up a piece to have with a bowl of soup, or in the wintertime they're kind of nice to have around. I pretty much always have some in my freezer, and I think the little ones, I believe they're 120 calories, so it's a really good portion, and it's one serving of carbohydrate. So if you're carb counting and you need a serving of carb, or can have a serving of carb like that with your meal, that's a good option. Or you can buy the bigger ones and cut them into smaller pieces. So it's naan. Great question. Naan. How do whole foods best aid us in our cancer journey? So if I'm understanding the question right, so whole foods in the sense of plant-based foods help us in our cancer journey because plant foods contain those cancer fighters that you can't find in a lot of other kinds of foods. They're called phytochemicals, and those are those things that are in fruits and vegetables and grains and nuts that offer us all kinds of benefits in the way of, as antioxidants. They protect, our DNA from damage. They do all these kind of magical things, and they're not micronutrients, they're not macronutrients, they're kind of something in between, and it's what gives fruits and vegetables and plant-based foods their very unique qualities in the sense of taste and smell and color. And that's why we say eat a good variety of different kinds of plant-based foods, because they all offer us something very different and very unique. So I hear a lot of people say, well, peanuts are bad, a bad nut, and I shouldn't eat them. Well, I come back to, they have resveratrol in them, which we know it can be cancer protective. So that's where, well, maybe we don't just eat peanuts. We eat peanuts, we eat cashews, we eat walnuts, we eat all different ones because they all have different benefits to them. So when we eat foods in their whole forms that are less processed in the sense, we're getting those benefits in addition to we're getting more fiber, we're probably getting more protein, we're also getting more vitamins, more minerals, all of our other nutrients in them too. And then we avoid all that extra stuff. The stuff that's put into processed foods that isn't so good for us, but some of it we don't even know about. So things like salt and fat, we know we want to be avoiding and limiting those in our diet as much as possible. But also some of these food additives that we don't know a lot about, they could potentially be causing digestive issues, they could be causing allergies. I just think we don't know a whole lot about them. And those are the sneaky things that you do find in processed foods. And I always give a really good example of trans fat. We thought trans fat was this great thing. We could take saturated fat out of food and put this fancy new fat in that was very inexpensive. It made food very shelf stable. And then a few years down the road, we found out, hey, guess what? Our bodies don't know what to do with it, so it starts sticking it in our arteries, and it's bad, bad, bad stuff. So we don't always know enough about these food additives and all these things that we're putting in our food until we find out they're not so good for us. So if we eat more whole foods, we completely avoid that problem, and we know what's in our food. And for people who do have food allergies and digestive issues, it's a lot easier to control what you're putting in your body and knowing what you're having a problem with or what's causing you an issue when you're sticking to more whole foods. So I hope that answers that question. If I didn't answer that well enough, just send me a message if you need more specific information. I'm peeking. 4 minutes. Got time for probably one more question. I always think that plants are very magical. Paige posted earlier about the mushrooms. Mushrooms are just fascinating to me. I think they're beautiful, and they're all so unique and so different, and there's such great benefits to them. And I just think plant food is just fascinating, and it does so many wonderful things for us. It's naturally low in fat and low in sodium, and it's loaded with nutrients, and it's just such a complete source of so many things in our diet. I just think it's amazing. So if we focus on more plant food and less animal food, our bodies would probably thank us for that. All right, 3 minutes. Any more questions? Anything else I can answer for everybody? If you haven't gone out to the American Institute for Cancer Research's website, they do have a lot of really good information on there, and can answer a lot of questions and has a lot of information about the studies. Roasted mushrooms, so good. I love roasted mushrooms. And on Saturday mornings, a lot of times I will just saute some shallots and mushrooms and have a whole batch of them for the week. And like that other day I said I made that bean soup, and I just threw some extra sauteed mushrooms in there, or I made some scrambled eggs and I just throw some sauteed mushrooms on top. I just kind of put them into everything. I also roasted a bunch of eggplant, so I'll just, you know, make like a roasted eggplant and mushroom and tomato and onion sandwich and just eat that as like a meal. So having roasted veggies available in your fridge is a great step if you're trying to cut corners for like easy, fast lunches or dinners, because you have this whole batch of stuff that you can use to make other things with and build on. I put them on top of my salads. It just adds like a whole, you know, instead of putting meat on top of my salad, if I put roasted veggies, it makes it heartier, makes it more filling. It just adds more variety to it. So I think roasting vegetables ahead is a great option. You can find Swiss chard at any grocery store. Sometimes they call it rainbow chard. Sometimes they call it green chard. I'm surprised that they didn't have it at Hy-Vee. Whole Foods almost always has it. I always see it at Gateway Market. I've seen it at Target. I think I've seen it at my Fairway store. I'm terrible because I don't ever go to Hy-Vee. It is not a place that I like to shop. I don't feel like they have the food that I eat there, and I don't like their produce. I don't think it's the best quality or flavor. So I don't shop there. So it's very hard sometimes for me to know what they do and don't have. So I apologize. I mean, my Fairway store is like 2 blocks away from me. So sometimes I do stop there, and I feel like they have pretty good selection in their produce department, especially herbs if you need to grab some fresh herbs. Good recipes for eggplant. Eggplant. I don't know if my eggplant parmesan recipe's on our Facebook page. I will put it on there. I just like slicing my eggplant, a little olive oil and salt and pepper, and then you have all this roasted eggplant, and I just put it put it on my salad all week. I can sit there and eat it. It's like that. It's that good. But I will post that my easy eggplant parmesan recipe. It's super good. I did it for a class a few years ago, and everybody really liked it. So I will share that one. That's a great recipe. But you can always roast it and just eat it roasted. It's great combined with other veggies roasted as well. I think it's delicious. I usually roast mine for about 30 minutes at 400 degrees, and that's usually a pretty perfect amount of time. All right, 7 seconds. I'll be right back. Okay, it's done, and it's bubbly, and it looks so good. All right, so I just sprinkle my dill, or flat leaf parsley works really well on top of this too. Dill's going on. I had dill this week because I made that soup that had dill in it, so that's why I'm using dill. Most of the time I would do parsley, but ta-da, that's it. Fancy Friday night dinner. I hope everybody tries it. I hope everybody has enjoyed this session. Please continue to share pictures. I will not pick winners for our last session until probably Tuesday morning to give people who got their wins late in the week more of a chance to prepare some of the recipes and share them. I have notified and talked to everybody who has won so far, so congratulations. The cookbooks that were posted in the picture are all gone. There's only the healthy eating cookbook left, so for my winners for next week. It smells so good. Oh my gosh, I'm like, my mouth's watering right now because I'm so excited to eat. So please try this one. If anybody tries this one, I'll give you 2 entries. If you try it this weekend and post a picture, I'll put your name down twice. It's delicious. I promise. You'll love it. All right, everybody. I'm ready to eat. So thanks, everybody, again for participating. And if you have questions, please let me know. And I hope to see you again in May for our next session. Good night, everybody. Have a great weekend.